When was the last time you added vellum onto your projects? In this video, I show you how you can add a touch of elegance by using vellum. Hello there, Michelle Short here for Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I'm adding a touch of elegance to my project using vellum. I will also share how you can adhere vellum without adhesive showing. So let's get started. First of all, I have die cut 2 Terrific tag dies from Classic Crest £110 white cardstock. I'm going to use one for the front and one for the back. So for the tag on the front, I'm going to add some ink blending to it, and I'm going to do that with the Sugarplums Crisp Dye Ink mini cube set. This is such a beautiful set. I really love the plummy tones in these inks, and I'm going to use a small ink blending tool for this. You can definitely use the larger one, but I decided to use the smaller one today, and I'm just adding that lightest shade there at the top, and then I'm going to blend so that the darkest shade is at the bottom. Quite often I do it the other way around, as in I start at the bottom and work my way up, but today I thought I would do it the other way round. So I'm just adding in that second shade here, and as you'll see, as I'm adding on these inks, they're adding on really quite splotchy, but as the cardstock dries, the inks really kind of blend into them and they just look so smooth, but you'd never know to start with because this tag at this moment in time doesn't look particularly nice, but like I said, they do dry really smooth, and you'll see that a little bit later on in the video. So I'm just adding that darkest shade there at the bottom. A lot of this is going to get covered up, but because the vellum is translucent, you will be able to see the kind of shade behind it, and you'll be able to see that the bottom is quite a bit darker than the top. I'm going to add some shimmer onto the tag with the Iridescent Shimmer ink spray. So I have kind of shaken that up a little bit, and then I'm just going to add a few spritzes of that onto the tag. I want to cover the entire tag with a really kind of light mist of the shimmer, and then also add a few extra drops kind of on top. Again, a lot of this is going to get covered up, but I do like to add those on. Next, I'm taking a piece of Vellum Translucent Paper, and I'm going to stamp my image on top. This image is from the Bouquet of Love stamp set, and it's such a beautiful image. It's really quite large in size, so it's perfect for loads of different applications. I'm creating a tag today, but you could definitely kind of make what I'm doing onto the front of a card base if you wanted to. I'm just taking my tag die here so that I can figure out which kind of section of the image I want to have stamped perfectly. I am going to stamp the whole thing, but I'm only going to add ink mainly towards the top part because that's the bit that I know I'm going to use. If you're creating a card, obviously you may want to stamp the whole thing, but you probably would still cut a little bit off of the bottom if you were doing it in the style that I'm making my tag today. I have prepped my vellum with an anti-static powder tool and just removing the excess powder, and then I'm going to ink up my stamp really well with embossing ink. This is a clear sticky ink so that when I add my embossing powder on top, it's going to stick to it. So I'm just making sure that this is really well inked up. It's quite a large image. And then once I'm happy with that, I can press that down in the MISTI here. So just making sure to really work over all of those different areas in the stamp. Like I said, I'm not concerned about the bit at the bottom, but I just mainly want the bit at the top. I'm then going to apply some pure white crisp embossing powder. And I'm just going to add that on, tap off the excess, and then I do add some more over the top just to make sure that I get a really nice coverage of that embossing powder. And then I can heat set that until it's completely melted. If you've never heat set on vellum before, let me tell you that it heats up really quickly. It is very prone to warping. Any type of vellum is very prone to warping. So what you want to do is once the embossing powder starts melting, you really want to move that heat gun away as quickly as possible. So move it really quite quickly throughout the image. I did get a little bit of warping, but because I'm running this through my die cutting machine, it did pretty much kind of push out all of those bumps as I went. I now want to add adhesive onto the back of this vellum piece so that I can adhere it onto my tag, and I'm using double-sided adhesive sheets for this. So this is going to cover the entire back of the vellum piece. What I found when adhering vellum is that actually you don't see the adhesive itself, you see where there's no adhesive. So if you've covered the entire thing with adhesive, the adhesive kind of just blends into the vellum and you don't see any difference between the two. So I'm just going to add that onto the back of the vellum piece here, making sure that I'm pushing out any kind of air bubbles or anything like that. And then I'm going to take the Bouquet of Love die set and I'm going to place the die on top, adhere it down with some low tack tape, and then I can run that through my die cutting machine. And that's just going to push that adhesive onto the back of the vellum, make sure that it's really stuck down well, and it's also going to flatten out the vellum piece as well at the same time. So I can just be really careful here just to remove that tape, and then I can remove the die from the vellum piece. And it did stick a little bit at the bottom purely because I wasn't concerned, like I said, about the bit at the bottom, so I didn't run it properly through my die cutting machine. I didn't have the plates all the way to the bottom, but I can just remove that quite easily. So at this point, as you can see, you've got the backing of the adhesive still on the back, and then I'm just going to use some tweezers just to poke out all of the little pieces in between those flowers, and this is such a beautiful image. I'm next going to stamp my sentiment, and this is from the same Bouquet of Love stamp set. I'm stamping it down onto some black cardstock with the same embossing ink, and then I'm going to add the same pure white crisp embossing powder on top. I like to have my embossing powders match, but I think it would look really nice if you wanted to do one of them in metallics or both of them in metallics if you wanted to. I think that would look really pretty. I just really love the look of heat embossing on vellum. So I'm just heat embossing this sentiment here until it's completely melted, and then I can cut that into a strip. This is the tag die, all dry now, and it's got that really lovely shimmer to it, and I'm going to add my vellum piece on top. So I'm going to carefully remove the backing off of that adhesive sheet, and now I've got a vellum sticker which I can add onto my tag. So I'm not removing all of the backing paper because, like I said, I know that I only need the top part. So I'm just cutting that down, and I can actually reuse that bit at the bottom if I want to for another project. So I'm just going to take my time here and work out exactly where I want this piece to be. Maybe turn it at a slight angle. And then once I'm happy with that, I can just press down lightly to start with, just to make sure that everything is in the exact right place where I want it to be. Because this adhesive sheet is really quite sticky, it's got a very high adherence to it. You don't need to press too hard and it's going to stick absolutely fine. But if you did want to push really hard, you can do that as well. I'm just going to cut the excess off. And as I was cutting that off, I thought it'd look quite pretty at the top of the tag. I didn't do that, but I still thought it would look quite pretty. But I did just kind of leave one of those leaves at the top hanging over, but because it's got that adhesive on the back, I'm just going to add some anti-static powder tool to that, and that's just going to get rid of any of that stickiness. Next, I'm going to take the other tag that I'm going to add onto the back, and I'm just going to add some glue tape onto that. And then I can have the tags back to back so that it's going to look really nice from the back of the tag, so I can write a personal message onto that if I want to. Just lining them up from the front, make sure that it looks really nice, and then I can just press those two together. I've then got my sentiment piece here that I have cut down, and I'm going to add some instant dimension foam tape to that, just to give it a little bit of dimension. I thought that I could add the entire width of the piece, and actually I could, but I know that I want to add some embellishments kind of poking underneath, so I'm just going to leave a little gap there. And then I can use the micro tip tweezers just to remove the backing off of the foam tape and help me adhere that down. So I can just press that down. And then I'm going to add some twine through the top of the tag. So I just add a piece through the top and kind of tie it in a knot at the front, and then I tie it in a bow. I like to leave my bows quite big on my tags. And then once I'm happy, I can just cut down those tails there. And then I did decide to cut them down a little bit more. So then to finish off this tag, I'm going to add even more sparkle and shine by adding some iridescent bubbles on top. I thought this tag would look really nice as kind of like a gift tag for a present if you were sending it like for a wedding or something like that. I just really love the kind of sparkle and shine, and that vellum I think gives a really nice elegance to the tag. Like I said, I definitely think this would work really nicely as a design for a card as well, but I do love my tags. But I also have an accompanying card here that I made in the past, and I think both of them would work really nicely together. So you could give the card as a card on its own and then add the tag onto a gift. I think that would be a really pretty set. Links to the products that I used in the video will be listed in the video description, as well as over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.